Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new IDoWorkHereLady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Mistaken Drill Sergeant Preface. I have exclusively lurked on Reddit until I found this subreddit and realized I had a perfect story. Additionally, I would say that I am no longer in the army and neither is DSR, so, back in around 2015-2016, I was the XO, for those unfamiliar with army terms, executive officer. Second in command but really just an overgrown office manager. Usually a 1LT, for a basic training company at Fort Jackson. I was new to the company when this happened, having arrived about a week earlier. Well, one of our DS had been on leave at the time and had just gotten back that day, so had never met or seen me. How our buildings were organized, the Caddy parking lot was off to the east of the building and then our company's office was on the north side of the building. So, I had to walk across the CTA company covered training area to get to it. I come back from lunch one day and am walking to the office. The trainees are in their platoon areas cleaning their weapons with a DS or two watching over them, so I'm not really paying it much mind when I hear a DS behind me yell, "Hey, trainee! Where the duck is your battle buddy?" In the Army, all trainees in basic training are required to travel with another trainee of the same gender known as your battle buddy. You are not allowed to go more than an arm's reach away from someone else, except like on details or using the bathroom. Like I said, I wasn't paying much attention because I didn't think he was talking to me. Next thing I know, I hear it behind me closer as he goes, "Hey, guy. I'm talking to you. Where the duck are you going? Start ducking pushing." I then realize that he actually is talking to me. See, I was pretty young at the time, like 23 to 24 and barely 5 feet 7 inches, still am. As an officer and not a DS, I also didn't wear the distinctive campaign hat or badge that D says wear, so it's pretty easy to confuse it from behind. What I did wear, however, was the black bar on my chest that shows my rank as a 1 lieutenant. So, when I turned, he saw it and I immediately could see him deflate. For those unaware, even though NCOs are the ones who really run the army, officers are still higher ranked. As he was an E5 at the time, too, it was by quite a bit. I just say, "Oh, hey, DSR, glad to meet you. I'm 1LT op." He just kind of went, "Yes, sir. Nice to meet you. Sorry about that." I smiled as it was just an honest mistake and was honestly pretty funny. I did also notice that the trainees, most of whom did know me, were looking and some were even smiling at the situation now. So, to defuse the awkward situation and cover the DS a bit, I say, "However, DS, I did notice that I walked onto the CTA and none of your trainees called attention. Might want to fix that." He kind of smiled back and turned around to start smoking the dog crap out of them. We would go on to laugh about it with the other DSs and one SG later that day, and it became a running joke to call me LT trainee. The next one is titled, Be Nice to Everyone, They Might Own the Place. Cast, me, new receptionist, near. Backstory, I own a portfolio of 5 different businesses that have little in common with each other. They are all service-based and 3 of them are public-facing and in different areas of the state in which I live. Given that the businesses all operate under separate names, provide separate services, and are located in separate offices, buildings, etc., I tend to allow the managers for each location hire clerical staff without me meeting them first. This largely works out to everyone's benefit as I don't have to drive several hours to approve a new receptionist, and it doesn't take time away from my staff or the new hire. One of my businesses happens to be involved with medical testing and is farthest from my home at about 3 hours away, so I only make trips out there if I have to. Shortly before COVID hit, I drove out the medical testing office to pick up some papers and to meet the new receptionist that had been hired a few days prior. I asked the manager in charge of that office to send me the new hire's name and some background info so I could introduce myself without not knowing anything about them. I pulled up to office around 5:45 p.m. and walked up to the check-in counter where the NER was sitting. Before I could say anything, let alone introduce myself, NER says, "We're about to close, so you need to come back later." I thought NER was joking and I kind of chuckled and waited for NER to laugh too. NER said, "Are you a crackhead or something?" I said, "We're closed." While I try to keep in mind that I don't know what is going on in someone's life to cause them to be in a bad mood, I also don't want NER or any of my staff to speak to anyone in that manner. This is the conversation between NER and I that followed. Me, do you speak to customers that way? NER, yeah, when you people come in late like you own the place. Me, I do. NER, you do what? Me, I own this place. NER, scoffs. Me, shows badge that states I'm the owner. Me, I'd like to see you in my office now. NR's eyes got very wide as she watched me swipe my badge, thus unlocking the door that leads from the lobby to the staff area. I passed the manager's office and told her to follow me to my office, which she did. The manager, Nia, and I sat down in my office and I explained the situation to the manager. I then explained to Nia that our office gets people from all walks of life and in all types of situations, and that I don't tolerate any of my staff speaking to people in such a manner when they are representing my business. I asked the manager to draft termination papers while I had a final check made out to Nia. When we settled all the formalities of firing Nia, I handed her the check, which she grabbed out of my hand and tried to storm out of the building. However, by the time we finished it was past 6 p.m., which is when the office closes and the front door automatically locks and requires an employee badge to unlock. As such, when Nia tried to open the door, it was locked, and when she tried to swipe her badge, the little red light just blinked because her badge was no longer active. The manager ended up having to swipe her badge to let Nia out, to which Nia mumbled thanks and left. The next one is titled, "No ma'am, I am not impersonating myself, I am definitely me." The story of karma, revenge against a very angry woman in a chip shop. This one takes place on a late afternoon shift just before the dinner rush, so we had a manager and 2 servers in, including myself. An important note for this story is that I used to have my hair dyed a bright blue color for a lot of my time working at the shop, but had recently dyed it back to natural brown as I was making uni applications, and it was generally seriously high maintenance when you had to wash it every day as the color ran out way too fast. So we're all going about our business, taking orders and getting ready for the dinner rush. This lady comes in with her kids. Now she's a regular. Not a friendly regular, but we typically see her a few times a week. I take her order and my colleague starts making up her food. As I'm packing it up, she seems annoyed, so I ask if everything is okay with the order, as I am concerned I've made a mistake and would rather rectify it then and there. She sighs and tells me that it's fine, but she misses having her hair taken by the girl with the blue hair, as she was much faster and politer than me, and asked me if she still worked there and what days she works. My service has not changed, I'm still doing my job the same as usual, the only difference is my dyed hair. I am also the only one with natural colored hair, so she is definitely talking about me. Now, as well as being able to tell from my face, as most of our hair is covered by a hat anyway, who I am. We also wear name tags. Our names come up on the register when we take orders, and they print on the receipts as a way of identifying who took an order in the event of a problem. So, I say, "Thank you so much for the compliment, that's actually me, I've just dyed my hair, but I appreciate the comments on my service this time and will try to improve. I've got another 7 hours left on this shift." I am super polite, as the last thing I want is for this woman to kick off right before the dinner rush when I'm still stuck here all night. She goes nuts, telling me that I am committing fraud, that she is going to have me fired and possibly arrested, and even tried to rope my colleague in to admit I'm lying, at which point they slip out back to locate the manager who was cooking. How could I claim that I, with my terrible service, is the lovely girl who usually served her? Her kids are there also trying to insist I'm clearly the same person, but she just keeps pushing them out the way and yelling that Mummy is handling this. I do not have the energy for this crap. I try apologizing, I even offer her a free drink for the inconvenience just to get her out of the store. She's not having it and asks for my manager. He has been standing at the back with my coworker literally pissing himself with laughter at this woman for the last 2 minutes, but puts on his customer service face and comes over. She starts demanding I'm fired. He just lets her rant for a while, then asks if she happens to have a receipt from a previous transaction with the girl she wanted to be served by. She pulls one out of her bag triumphantly, literally with a flourish, thinking she's got her way and proved me to be the scoundrel she thinks I am. It has my name at the top, clear as day. He points to my name tag and has her read out the name on the receipt and the name on the tag. She gets super flustered but is way too far gone now to admit her mistake, starts claiming I've stolen someone else's tag and that she'll have me arrested for identity theft. My manager at that point is totally done and tells her to get out and don't come back without a better attitude. For the next 9 months I worked there, as we're the best, only fast food place in the local area. She stands outside sending her very embarrassed kids in twice a week so they can get still a takeaway. And, of course, it's England in the winter, it rains a lot. The next one is titled, Dead End Shortcut. In the early 90s I was working at a cab company in a small city. Names have been changed. Our terminal was located in the middle of the block with the lot running from the alley in the rear to the street out front. We had parking for cabs up front and along one side, with 2 lanes for cabs in service. We pulled onto the lot from the alley and always pulled forward onto the street. Cabs were dispatched out in the order they arrived at the lot. City ordinance was if we weren't actively going to get or had passengers we were not allowed on the street. Yes, my city is a bit odd in some respects. It was a bit of a slow day. When I get to the lot, there are 3 cars there already. Just after I pull in and stop, a guy in a brand new Caddy pulls in next to me, and he is on his cell phone. At this time cell phones were fairly rare. Another driver pulls in behind me and the shift manager pulled in behind the caddy and stopped. We had all got out of our cars and were chatting about various events. The manager, referred to as Bob, was still by his car, watching the guy in the caddy. Just as soon as the Ken in the caddy got off the phone, he starts honking his horn and screaming to move the cabs out of his way. We look at Bob and he just shakes his head no. The Ken is screaming worse now, telling us how important he is, and that we were stopping him from getting to a meeting that involved $1 million project. We looked at Bob, and he explained to the Ken that it was a private lot, and he should have paid attention to where he was going. The guy yelled at Bob, "It's an alley." Bob told him since when does an alley have a gas pump on it, and pointed to the pump we used to fill up after shift. The guy started yelling he was going to call the police, and that he knew the chief. The owner of the company was a retired chief of detectives lol. Ken was told that had he acted reasonably, which he had not, that we would have moved our cabs out of his way, but, since he wanted to be an ass, we gave him an attitude adjustment. My boss told him that since we leave the lot in the order we arrived, he would have to wait his turn. He grumpily said okay, not knowing what we were fairly sure would happen on a beautiful day, which was not much. By the time he found himself in a position to be able to leave, he had been waiting for 2.5 hours. He missed his meeting. The next one is titled, "Never Did Live It Down." A few years ago, I worked for an international courier company. Their trucks are white, their uniforms include purple. Because they are technically registered as an airline, security is taken very seriously. I didn't work at an airport location, but we were all trained to look for security badges on everyone we didn't know. There are even posters all over, showing respectful methods of confirming that people are supposed to be there. But nobody thinks they're going to be in that situation. I was. My first day. Guy walks by, not wearing a uniform, no visible badge, right by me. So, I call out, "Excuse me, sir. May I see your badge?" He smiles, reaches under his sweater, produces the badge, and goes on with his day. The people around me just gaped. And then they talked. That's how I became known as the guy who ID'd the general manager. The next one is titled, "I have a ticket, but also I participated in your training." This story happened pre-COVID. I work at an entertainment venue that brings in tens of thousands of people for events. There are multiple ticket options from your standard ticket to premium and very premium options. I hold a senior level role that allows me to go into almost any area of the venue with my badge. Badges are color-coded and my badge is the rarest employee badge color. Some roles require badges to be displayed at all times, my role does not, but I do wear it sometimes and always show it to enter restricted areas when I'm working. I also do not wear a uniform. We do mass hiring to staff the venue, and when we do, we host training days where they have people in roles like mine come and talk to the new hires. I play a fairly large role in the trainings, so new hires see me several times and my picture are in some of the materials. To be clear, I do not expect seasonal employees to remember me, but most recognize me even if they don't know exactly who I am. I was attending an event as a guest, with a friend, not as an employee. I had my badge with me because the nature of my role means that I'm technically always working, but I was accessing the venue with my ticket, not badge. I had tickets to one of our high-level premium areas, and this happened not long after our mass hiring trainings. I entered my ticketed area using my ticket. To get to this area I had to show my ticket to enter the venue, and then 2 more times to get into the specific area. I noticed an employee watching me and my friend. We were just standing and chatting, not doing anything extraordinary. The employee kept walking by slowly, and occasionally would stop someone else to gesture towards me as they seemed to talk about me. They were staring in my direction, gesturing towards me and talking to each other. Finally, the employee walked towards me and said, "I need to see your tickets." This is not how employees are trained to approach people they think are in the wrong area. I grab my ticket and extend it towards him. He rudely grabs it out of my hand, turns around and starts walking away. He gets a couple of steps, stops, turns around and hands them back and then walks off while mumbling, "Thanks." Again, this is not at all how employees are trained to deal with this. I could have shown my badge and put a stop to the whole thing, but I wanted to see what was going to happen. Even though at this point, he's verified my ticket, he continues to watch me, popping his head into our specific area, walking slowly by us while staring, etc. I couldn't figure out if he thought we didn't belong, fake tickets, or if he thought we would misbehave and damage the space. A little bit later, a manager in his reporting chain comes by and I point him out to her and let her know that I expect him to stop and he needs to be retrained. I guess she spoke to him because I did not see him again the rest of the night. He ended up being reassigned to a non-premium area, which is the same pay but is generally considered a demotion. The next one is titled, "Internship." English isn't my first language, so bear with me. This happened about 2 years ago. I work in a health insurance company in our country. I was in my mid-20s at the time. I'm an Asian dude and I'm only 5 feet 7 inches and I look younger than my actual age. I supervise the field operations of our company in our area. One of my jobs is to personally check on our field employees on their assigned workplace 3 times a week. They are usually assigned to the hospitals partnered to our company. I always do my rounds on mornings before I went to the office so that I could work straight for the rest of the day. I usually arrive at the office about 1 to 2 hours later than other employees. We have like more than 10 interns at that time. One of them is this confident guy assigned to the reception. I wasn't formally introduced to mostly interns when they started because I always come to the office late and I only see this guy every time I enter the building because we don't really need interns on our department. So one day, after like a week since this intern guy at the reception started, I came to the office after my field check, therefore I'm late. This intern guy, though I was one of the interns, and told me, "WTF dude? Late again? You think it's okay to slack off because you're just..." Our receptionist behind him quickly grabbed him before he could finish his sentence and apologized to me for the behavior of the intern, while the intern was very confused on why the receptionist grabbed him. I just smiled and nodded and proceed to my office because honestly, I was also shocked and I a pretty awkward and introverted dude and I don't really like confrontations. I was also informed that at the same day HR sent a letter to his school informing them that our office will cancel his internship program because of his behavior. And that was the last time I saw him. He didn't also apologize to me personally, and probably for the best because I don't really know how to respond to this kind of situation. Honestly, I think what the HR did was a bit overkill. I wasn't really offended of what happened and I get it all the time where people call me kid because of how I look. The next one is titled, Grouchy Old Regular. Okay, so to start this off, I used to work at a swimming pool on a military base. We catered mostly to military personnel and their families. But as we were the only pool in town, also welcomed other members of the community. So, I had been working there for almost a year and it was at the time that our pool shuts down for maintenance. I got a call from my boss asking me if I wanted to come in for some easy work. I had to go to a different building operated by our parent company that was doing stock and make sure they weren't lying about anything. I don't know why they got a lifeguard to do it. It may have been because they couldn't give us much else to do and I had no relation to this other building at all. So, a few days later I go and do the job, and I'm instructed to hand the paperwork into my boss's mailbox, which is in the office in the pool area. We get the keys from the back door to the front desk usually. So I went to walk around to get them when one of the regulars at the pool, he was going in to use the gym also located in the building, stops me and asks if I have ID on me. I respond, "Yeah, why?" To which he says, "This is a military pool meant for military. I need to see your ID and you can't just walk by without signing in." And then he goes off about how disrespected the military are in our community and how he doesn't know why we're welcome here. I'm trying to get a word in to say that I work here, but he just keeps going on and on. Also a note, I was a pretty scrawny 17-year-old at the time and this guy was a 6 feet 3 inches military dude who could crush me with one hand. All this time the lady at the front desk, who knew exactly who I was, is trying not to laugh, and eventually when he turns to her to scoff at my disrespect, I was literally standing there not knowing what to do. Does she tell him that I work there? Was his response to apologize? No. Was it to acknowledge me in any way? No. He just took back his card that had been scanned and was sitting on the counter and walked to the gym. It was kind of funny seeing him at lane swim when the pool opened back up. The next one is titled, Newbie Operator Talks Bad About Co-Workers. So, in one of my previous jobs I was a digger operator at a mine site. I was fairly new but picked it up very quickly and had been in the industry for over 5 years. My crew was considered the most experienced and in turn was always full. At some point some people left and they decided to finally fill our crew. For some context, I'd been at this mine for over a year and knew almost everyone in operations, was friends with most of the supervisors and leading hands, 2ICS, and would sometimes fill in as a 2IC. One of the new workers we got was this guy, probably mid-20s, same as myself, and I was off the diggers for the day for whatever reason and was training this guy in the trucks. He seemed fairly knowledgeable in the trucks, so I went through our basic intro to trucks and such and got in and off we went. After a couple hours of just listening to music, he started talking about the diggers, in which I sort of just went along. I kind of suck at small talk. He went on to tell me everything about diggers and how the diggers operators for my crew were slow and clunky. I sort of just went along with it until he decided to target my usual digger. Each digger operator usually has a digger they're stuck to most of the time unless something's wrong with it or it's in an area they don't want to dig at the time. I didn't think much of him talking crap until he mentioned one of the days I was on the digger with one of the really experienced operators. He was showing me some tricks and such to up my production that little bit more. This guy who had not even stepped foot in a digger on site was talking crap about me and one of my mates who was debatably one of the best best on site. I stayed quiet as I do and went to the other digger op afterwards and told him. This snowballed into none of the digger ops taking him seriously. Suddenly it was this guy's turn to get a shot on the diggers, and who gets put with him after his training? You guessed it, so we pre-start and fire it up. I'm just in the digger to make sure he doesn't break anything, hit trucks and get it set up for him. And everything's fine. Walk the digger over to the new dig pattern and I prep the bench to walk the digger on. Old mate up till this point has been contemplating the saying, as quiet as a mouse, probably realizing he had talked crap about me to me, when suddenly he pipes up saying, "Hey, if you just prep it, I'll walk up," I think wanting to show he's not just a crap talker, and I agree cause I'm not really in it that day considering I was about to be a passenger doing nothing for 12 hours. I prep the bench and we swap seats, everything's fine till we get halfway up the ramp and I notice the tracks slipping. I tell him to stop and check his tracks, turns out he's somehow walked halfway up the ramp and ended up on a 45 to the power of 0 angle, so I say okay, now you need to turn your tracks back straight and then keep trying. He proceeds to move the tracks, in which he barely did, and tried again. This resulted in us being almost on the bench, with tracks facing the wrong way and in a dangerous spot. My supervisor happens to drive into the pit during this and has realized I'm not in the seat. The radio cracks, "You okay up there, digger XXX?" Before I can grab the radio he's already grabbed it. "Yeah, no worries." I ask him if he wants me to take over and he agrees. At this point he's messed up the ramp and it's too ruined to keep trying to get up. I radio the supervisor and ask him if I'm clear behind, to which he says yes, and we proceed to half slide, half track back down the ramp. No worries. Just saved a possible massive amount of damage. One thing I didn't know until after the fact is this guy had been talking himself up to management. He was a god in his own eyes. So I set up the ramp again and say I'll just run it up for him, to which he declines and says, "Nah, I got it, I know what I did wrong." Not being much of a standoffish person, I agree and swap with him again. 10 minutes later, grossly longer than it should take, we're on the bench and he's getting lined up to start the dig and the radio cracks again. "Digger XXX, can you hold there and drop your ladder and can me come down?" Copy that. Pull the digger up and get him to stay outside the cab while I'm not in there. "No worries." I walk down and the supervisor says, "WTF was that?" I said, "He messed up the first time but I fixed the ramp and said I'd take it up and he declined." Then the supervisor points something out to me. He's not outside the cab anymore. I radio up for him to come down and he starts walking down. I turn to the supervisor and say, "Put him in with the big guy, the experienced digger op I had with me previously that old mate had talked crap about that day, or I won't get in with him again." Supervisor is happy with that and I spend the day working. Wind forward a few weeks and this guy has been nothing but trouble, but he is let up in the digger with experienced operator, big guy, and is immediately thrown in the deep end. Most trucks in the circuit, worst dig pattern, worst material, just really given the worst opportunity. He seems to be going alright, albeit fairly slow when I look over every so often. Little do I know big guy is sitting in the passenger seat, letting rip, stinking up the cab, giving this guy hell for every little mistake. He complains all smoker and lunch break naturally. Next day I meet up with my dad at the bar. We worked at the same mine but he is HR manager and he says he's gotten a bunch of complaints about me and big guy. Big guy the first can understand. He's pretty abrasive and intimidating if you don't know him. He's a big teddy bear, but I get along with almost everyone and mostly keep to myself, so dad kind of ignored them and I asked if they all look like the same handwriting, to which he says yes, and I tell him about this guy. Turns out he was putting in anonymous complaints on me and big guy for everything under the sun, harassment, bullying, etc. It all ended in an investigation which he admitted it was false complaints and he apologized to us and HR for wasting their time. The old man however had heard the rumors about this guy but didn't have a name, and this incident solidified him as the guy. A further check turned out he hadn't worked in mining before, had lied through almost all of his resume and had only ever driven commercial trucks, resulting in his termination and all the operators rejoicing.